Hello again, it is Crew Call here on the Motor Racing Network, taking you into the garage area and talking to the folks that make the race cars go around the racetrack. I'm Steve Post, pit road reporter for MRN, joined by 25-time and championship-winning crew chief, Todd Gordon. Hello, Todd, how are you?
I'm great. 4th of July weekend was spectacular. Wow. The events at Chicago were phenomenal. Saturday, we got to see a battle of the Titans. And Sunday, we got to see a bath.
Unreal. Well, I got to see a bath, that's for sure. I got to feel a bath. This Chicago, as good as these two events have been, I cannot imagine what it's going to be like if we go back there. And again, that's the big question right now.
I think we will.
I think we will too. All indications I'm getting is that we're headed back there. I cannot imagine if we get good weather again, how big the events were. Because prior to that rain hitting on Sunday, the vibe, the energy, the crowd, everything was spectacular.
We've kind of moved from last year it was rained out.
It was monsooned
right?
out.
So This year we got Saturday and we got up till race time on Sunday, which got the concerts. In. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have been there. Haven't been there for this one yet, but I just think the vibe there is as Elton talked about on the morning drive on Tuesday. It's an event. It's not just a race. It's an event. There's multiple concerts. There's a lot going on downtown Chicago. From TV, it's a phenomenal view. I can't imagine what it's like to be there.
It is so amazing to be there. And you talk about downtown. Saturday night, I went to Paisano's, a pizza place there, and just sat at the bar. Went on my own, sat at the bar. The bar was full of NASCAR people, and I don't mean industry people. I saw two people I knew from the industry there. The bar was full of people in T-shirts and hats. Two guys next to me, not eavesdropping, but hearing and listening to their conversation. Two young sports fans from Chicago, probably 30 years old. Two guys, never been to a NASCAR race again. Loved it. They were there for the Xfinity race. Yep. They were talking about SVG and Kyle Larson, two names that probably they had never uttered in their life. One of them was into the music and could not wait for the Sunday morning concert, one of the concerts, and said, that race today was good enough. I'm going to stay for the race. And one of them was into the gaming and gambling aspect of it, and he was trying to figure out who he should put his money on. And I'm just sitting here, and the bar was full of people like that. This is NASCAR has this initiative of take the fans to new people, and they take this to new people in Chicago.
Going to downtown cities, third largest city in the United States, going right downtown, puts in a whole new demographic. And I think it exposes to a lot of people that don't know NASCAR. And what a great event. I to your point, we get a dry event. I can't wait to see what happens. But I think this format shows, the product on the racetrack was really good. Yeah. Dry and wet.
Yeah.
I felt like either way, the Saturday show was phenomenal. Watching SVG drive from 20th back up through the field, he's just a surgeon when it comes to this type of stuff. But and then Sunday, really, Brad Gilley and I were talking about this Monday night. But if you had to pick four cars that you felt like were going to be contenders for Sunday's race, I'd pick SVG,
right?
Kyle Larson, right. Christopher Bell, AJ Allmendinger. I think they finished 35th and worse.
Yeah,
all four of them.
So
it's, it's just a product of what happened there. But phenomenal event. Yeah. I saw you pretty wet.
Oh yeah, soaking wet.
But if we can get this in the dry, the weekend was a success. I can't wait to see what happens if we get a dry race.
No doubt. Want to give a couple of attaboys when we talk about Chicago. We're going to talk to Chris Gabehart here on the program. Chris is our guest this week, talking a lot of things about Chicago, but a lot Pocono too. Chris has had so much success there. Want to give some attaboys. First win for crew chief Blake Harris. How about that?
I was surprised by that. Brad Gilley hit me up with it, said first win for him, and I'm like, really? Because he's had a great trajectory.
Yeah.
You look at what he did with Michael McDowell and the success that they built there, but they didn't win there. And then I just had it because when he first came over to Alex Bowman, the beginning of the year, they were on fire. They were leading the points.
Yes.
So I hadn't put it together that he hadn't won yet, but what a special occasion that is, and one that he'll always remember.
One of my favorite things we do with MRN is when we jump up on the pit box at the end of the race to talk to the crew chief, and I knew it was Blake's first win, and it was just those are moments that are really cool. I've gotten hugs up there while interviewing the guys. Yeah. This time it was just a Jake while we were talking, and it was just amazing. So that first win is so special.
And Alex coming back from from 80 some races without a win, and injury, a brain injury, and a spinal cord injury with this sprint car racing thing. This kind of gets him back on track, and I'm interested to see how this win kind of alleviates that pressure and moves the whole Hendrick campus forward.
Right, because all 4 of the Hendrick cars now, they join all of Penske in there as well. Couple other attaboys. There are people in the NASCAR garage that have been around forever and ever, and they keep popping up, and one of them is a guy named Derek Finley. I don't know, do you know Derek at all?
I do. I know of him. I don't know him personally, but
great guy. Yeah. He is a great guy. He's crew chief for Joey Hand. He is the director of operations at RFK. So when they bring out the Stage 60 car, he's the crew chief on this car. Mm-hmm. He has been around forever. His first season was crew chiefing in 2000 as a crew chief, 2003 for Travis Carter Racing and Todd Bodine. And I talked to Derek, and they were way in the back before the race. I talked to him. He said, we got to pull something out today. I don't even know what we're going to do. Well, Mother Nature, a great race car driver, a great race car, gave them a 4th place finish. So Derek Finley, career, 219 starts. That's his second career top 5 finish. How about that? Isn't that cool? I love that. And another attaboy, and it's a guy we've given some to in the past, Mike Kelly, JTG Racing. Yep. 6th place finish in Chicago. 7th at Loudon, 5th at Iowa, and then the 6th place finish. They just seem to keep on creating their thing. They're doing their thing and creating good finishes. And the final attaboy is Bruce Schlicker. We've talked about this every time we have a road race in the Xfinity Series. His 10th career win with SVG, picking that up in Chicago on Saturday. So great stuff, and kudos to all of everybody in NASCAR for pulling off another weekend of Chicago of pushing tires and carts and race cars all over the city streets. Yeah. Fun stuff for sure. Let's do this. Let's step away. When we come back, Chris Gabehart, he joins us next. Welcome back to Crew Call here on the Motor Racing Network. Todd Gordon and Steve Post, and let's go to the Zoom line. Joining us from over at Joe Gibbs Racing, Chris Gabehart, crew chief for Denny Hamlin. Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Chris, I want to go real big picture on you to start off. Being a crew chief in 2024, and it might have been Denny that said something in the media center that said none of these races are normal anymore, okay? We have 5 overtimes in Nashville. We have wet weather tires in New Hampshire, Christopher Bell going 5 wide. We have Chicago. We have people running out of fuel. The challenges of being a 2024 crew chief, how has that evolved? How has that changed as we look at what NASCAR is today?
That's a great question. And it's one that has changed even in my time doing it for 5.5 years, let alone 10 or 15 years ago. We haven't talked about it, but the scheduling even. The schedule 5 or 10 years ago used to be so regiment and routine. You'd get into this flow of intermediates. You'd have a short track or two. You'd go to a road course every now and then, and you could really start to carry over what you did from the week before to the next week. You can't do that now. The schedule is all the time, has you at either a brand new track or an intermediate or a speedway or a short track that, oh, by the way, if it rains, you got to be ready to race. It's just constantly changing. So it's hard to get in a rhythm with the schedule, let alone all the things you mentioned. And I would even say that because of that, the rhythm has become there is no rhythm. It's just normal. You just realize that you got to be ready for anything at any given time.
So as you look at a race like we had this weekend where we had rain, and we've had it at Loudon where we had rain, I guess on the crew chief side and on the technical side, what kind of compromises do you have to kind of take into effect for a dry setup versus a wet setup, and how you see the weekend, and where does that kind of thought process start in a week?
Well, that's another good question, because what we're starting to realize is how are we going to get better at rain racing? Like it's got to start to become a focal point. Clearly, let's make no bones about it. The 11 car is not running very well when it rains right now. So we're really having a lot of internal discussions about how do we get better at this? You can't just go. It's hard to even simulate rain. We have pretty accurate simulation tools these days for regular conditions, but for rain, we don't, and Denny doesn't have a way to go practice rain, right? So it's really a difficult thing in the constant evolution of NASCAR that we're still talking through ourselves.
I can't imagine like thinking back through simulation in the years that I was there, and that's 4 or 5 years removed from it. But the tire model alone, just understanding what you want out of a wet weather tire, it's a different model than what you've got. I can't imagine the processes that are challenges there, and what you look at. As you had a weekend like this where we thought it was going to be dry and then it ended up raining, what all can you work on your race cars?
Yeah, that's the challenge is whereas on an oval rain race right now, the stops are non-competitive. So you actually do have time to get in there and work on the car a little bit more than you do on a rain race. When it looked like it was going to be rain there around lap 17, I mean, really it was kind of could go either way. But the bottom line is the stops were competitive the whole time. So there's very little time because you don't want to go to the tail of the field because you want to do a couple rounds of wedge or something like that. It's just not worth it. So really what you're talking about is air pressure, brake bias, and then the working with the driver and his techniques. And it's those techniques and refining them that is causing you to see a big spread throughout the field of drivers that, either their background more suited this style of racing and now they're getting to showcase that, or, maybe in some instances they're being coached through it better than others, but a lot of disparity for sure.
When you have a weekend like this, what's the teardown like on the race car? Is there different things you need to do with the electrical systems to make sure they're all clean? How does this impact Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as you start to rebuild for the next time around for these cars?
Man, it's like you guys have been in this sport a long time and know all the right questions that I ask. I just went through a lot of that this morning with the team of what did we learn? What can we do better? Some of it was with our radio system. We weren't happy with some of the things that we saw there. So you're constantly evolving on how to get better, but it's not the things that you would normally look at coming home from a Pocono or home from an Indy where you've gotten the system so refined that really what you're looking for is, did everything behave to the thousandths of an inch or the 0.5% of this or the 3 pounds of that? That to determine how accurately your weekend went. It's things like the electrical system. It's things like, what cracks on the car leaked and can we keep the driver from getting soaked a little bit more? How might we change our hose ducting to accommodate a really wet weather scenario? Because we have a book of like 492 million different inner driver cooling ducts that we can run now. So maybe there's one that's more suited for rain. It's those are the types of things you're looking at. 492
million and one now as he goes forward. A tough run. And you talked about it. The rain races have been a little bit of a challenge. You've had a rough stretch since a motor failure at Sonoma. You got to be a little excited about the fact you've won 3 of the last 7 races at Pocono. Headed to Pocono and getting back to that racetrack.
Yeah, for sure. There's an asterisk next to a 4th one that's painful, but yes, Pocono's been a very good racetrack for us. But the thing is, we're running well. Sonoma, you got to throw it out because of the engine failure. Obviously, we were fast in the dry at Chicago. We just didn't get to showcase that much. Loudon, we were, I would say, the favorite to win before it rained. We were in a really, really good spot. Iowa, we had recovered from a really bad start. We're running well inside the top 10, passing for 6th when we got swept up in a wreck there. So it's just one of those things, Todd, as well as I do, where when you're not finishing well and you're not running well, you got to really worry about the panic button. But that's not where we're at. We just got to get out of the slump of not finishing well. And I can't think of 2 better racetracks to go to than Pocono and Indy for that.
Let's talk a little bit about Pocono, building a good race car, setting up a good race car. What are the keys to getting around that racetrack so well?
Well, it used to be compromise. You could take a turn off, so to speak, because Pocono's got 3 turns and they're so different. And, well, I'm going to compromise this one for that one. Not in today's cup racing. You're not going to compromise anything. You better be good at all of them. And that's been our secret, is really finding a way to get good at all of them. There are certain areas of the racetrack that are more important than others. I'm not going to give you my opinion on that, but there are. But the key is you can't go compromising anymore. It's just too tight a field now to do that.
And not to ask you to, what your focus is, since you alluded to you wouldn't give that one. But talk about how different they are, because turn one's got a lot of banking in it relative to turn three. Turn two's a little different, got a huge bump in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's well said. We tested at Indy for the first time with the next gen car a month or so back with a Goodyear tire test, and it was striking how different it was than Pocono now. You used to not really think that way, but because of this car and the way you have to ride so close to the limiters and the things that Indy would allow you to do that Pocono won't, because turn one loads the car so much heavier at Pocono than the other corners. A little bit of bumps, then you go through the tunnel turn at Pocono with a great big bump that you got to navigate, and then turn three is really flat and sweeping. And if all you had was a track full of turn threes, you would set your car up totally different. And going to Indy, that was interesting to live through, kind of how different that is than the Gen 6 era, where one setup would work pretty well at the same track.
Yeah, we used to think before Pocono got repaved, it was almost like you took the setup from one to the other. That was probably before your time. I know you laid that out. It was right at the beginning of mine, but these places are a lot different at this point. How much of your notebook from that test do you apply here at all? Or are they totally different? And what do you expect out of Indianapolis back on the big track?
I treat them as different tracks. I think there still are a lot of similarities, but the key is the level of accuracy that we have to hit now at each and every track. You can't group them together anymore. I think each track really is its own animal. Fortunately for the 11 car, we've really honed in on the things that we like and need out of Pocono. The last 2 years we've been really, really good there. And of course into the Gen 6 era, which is a little less pertinent at this point. But I look forward to going back. The new Toyota Camrys have been really, really fast. The engine department's been doing a great job. We've had speed as a race team. So again, I'm really excited for the next two races for sure.
We get through the next two races, Pocono and Indianapolis, and then we have a rare break in the NASCAR Cup Series. What's the team plan? What's the shop hours? What's the game plan during that Olympic break for you guys up there, Chris?
Yeah, it's a great break for the racing industry, that 2 weeks. 1 week is maybe a long weekend, but you really can't quit thinking about racing. 2 weeks off, you can turn it off for 5 or 6 days and really get away and enjoy a nice reset, and then get ready for the grind that will be the last 14 or so races. So all of the team is going to be taking at least a week to themselves to go do whatever's needed. I'll be doing the same. We're going to go take a beach vacation over at the Outer Banks, actually. So
awesome.
Looking forward to it. And again, it's such a nice time because you can really afford to unplug for a little bit. You'll never quite let the gears quit turning.
Yes.
That's the racer in you. But you don't have to feel bad about getting away from it with 2 weeks off. You can unwind a little bit.
See, I figured there'd be a short track in your week off someplace out there as well, just knowing you're
But I have 2 kids now. I have 2 kids and I'm married. As you know, things change, right?
Yeah, they do. One of the things you alluded to earlier in the first part of the conversation, just the changes that we've seen in the schedule and how that kind of changes the layout of the routine. You're not going the back-to-back intermediates and all that. I guess I want to dive into the changes in the playoff schedule. When you look at the playoffs, as I look at the playoff schedule now, in my days as a crew chief, I always called the first round the base hit round. We just needed to execute and not take ourselves out. We could be fine. But now you've got road courses and I'll call them speedway events with Atlanta and Watkins Glen in round 1. You've got Talladega and Roval in round 2. How does that change how you kind of prepare and look at the playoffs as the rounds come forward?
Yeah, thanks for adding some stress to my day, Todd. So let me just read them here real quick. Atlanta, Watkins Glen, Bristol, Kansas, Talladega, the Roval. I read 6 races off there, and there's only one of them that I feel like is maybe a little normal and you can hide somewhere, and that would be Kansas. The rest of them, you can't hide. I don't care how good you are, how fast you are, how confident you feel at that racetrack as a race team. There are 37 or 38 other teams out there that are not going to let you get comfortable at any of those tracks I just named, with the exception of Kansas. So it's stressful. The schedule is tough. It's going to test every facet of your race team. You're not going to get through those 6 races clean. You will have problems. How are you going to handle the adversity? That'll be the difference maker.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is absolutely amazing as we roll into this time of the year and as we roll along. Chris, it is always a pleasure to hang out with you. Okay, we talked about no short track racing during the Olympic break. Do you have snowball derby plans for later on, or does that fall under the husband and dad no go plan?
Yeah, I mean it depends. Is my wife watching this or not? Okay. I'm not gonna answer that. So I stay neutral. No, I know the Slinger Nationals are tonight, kind of when we're recording this. I love that racetrack. Love the Snowball Derby. Love those cars. I mean, I still keep up with it for sure, but getting to the racetrack's not as easy as it used to be.
No, really is a challenge, that's for sure. Chris, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us this time here on Crew Call.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There we go. Chris Gabehart, crew chief for Denny Hamlin at Joe Gibbs Racing. Stay with us. More Crew Call in just a moment. Crew Call rolling along here on the Motor Racing Network. Todd Gordon and Steve Post, and always appreciate the time we get to spend with Chris Gabehart. He just really, what I think Darrell Waltrip used to be, splains things well. He really splains things well. Even I can understand it. He's a great communicator and great crew chief.
He is, and he's aware of everything that makes a difference. That's why they've won so many races. But great conversation, great insight into a lot of things. Love that he kind of baited out there. I'm not going to give you all my Pocono thoughts. So, but a really cool racetrack to come up to. A tricky triangle. After 3 different racetracks, Trenton out of New Jersey is turn 1.
Turn 1 is Trenton.
Turn 2 is Indianapolis, but it's got a big bump in it. It's not like Indianapolis, as he told us there. And then turn 3 is off the Milwaukee Mile. So as flat as that place. So 3 iconic racetracks, but all merged into one.
This race, 160 laps, 400 miles, stages of 30, 65, and 65. So we're going to have some pit strategies, some conversations. The pit strategy, we talk about this, we go to Pocono. You've got some flexibility in this race because you can pit without losing a lap.
Yes. And we saw it last year. We saw a fair amount of guys that pitted at 27, 3 laps before stage 1. Some of them through cautions connected that to a 3-stop race. So some might want to get long on that so that they can connect the 3-stop race. We'll see where it plays. But to your point, being as long as it is, a lap time around there is in the 52-second range. You've got time to come to pit road. If you're within 10 seconds of the leader, come back out and maintain your lead lap position, which cycles you back forward.
Yeah, and then we're in this period of the year where there are some racing for stage points, there are some racing for wins, and that impacts the strategy as well. There are some that lap 30, lap 95 mean nothing. There are some lap 30 and lap 95 mean a fair amount. And, of course, everybody lap 160 means things. It just means a little bit more to some other ones than others. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. For the 12 guys that have wins, getting that playoff point for a stage win, they're going to stay out for it. But you want to go get those. There's a lot of guys chasing victories, too. There's not a lot of guys chasing points at this point because when you look at our point situation, I think everybody's got to win.
We don't have a point battle at the sweet spot. There's a big margin there. Winning is going to be the way to jump in.
I feel like Martin Truex Jr. is still in a good, comfortable position. Ty Gibbs put himself in a better position. He kind of stretched himself, but you got Ross Chastain and Chris Buescher battling it out right there. And I think there's another winner to come from behind the cut line yet. So we'll see where it all plays out.
And it could happen on Sunday.
The last 2 weeks, we've had the guy that's on the bubble go to victory lane.
Yeah.
So does that put Chris Buescher in victory lane this weekend?
He's done it before at Pocono. Yeah. And RFK, they're another one that just speed and running fast hasn't been necessarily their problem. We'll see what happens with it, that's for sure. Motor Racing Network going to be there all weekend long. We start our coverage Friday night, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, the CRC Brake Clean 175. Saturday at noon, NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying. 2:30, the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Explore the Pocono Mountains 225. And on Sunday at 1:30 Eastern Time, NASCAR Cup Series, the Great American Getaway 400 presented by VisitPA.com. Just rolls off the tongue. That is for sure. So, going to be a fun weekend. Before we get out of here, I'd like to remind you that if you are enjoying what we're doing on Crew Call, jump on your social media channels and link to us and share that with your racing buddies and your racing friends. Subscribe to our MRN channel here and like these shows. We do appreciate it. That just helps the algorithms make these get in front of more faces and more people, and we do appreciate it. So, Todd, we look forward to this weekend. You're going to be our analyst up at Pocono and going to have a good time up there this weekend.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait to get back to racetrack. Going to be a great place to be. I think the Pocono Mountains area, just a wonderful area. Looking forward to getting racing there.
They are a wonderful area. I'm actually taking some extra time up there to do a little hiking, so it's going to be good, and then settle in for a great race weekend. He's Todd Gordon. I'm Steve Post. We're grateful for Chris Gabehart joining us here on the program, but more important than all of that, thank you for joining us here on Crew Call on the Motor Racing Network.